Welcome, everyone. JT here. Welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. And the purpose is to hear and learn more about their journey to greatness. Why? Because success always leaves clues. I am really enthused, folks, for you to join us today, whether you're tuning in live, whether you are listening to the podcast, because I am bringing on someone who has had a big impact on my life. I would say I've been very blessed to have, a few very instrumental mentors and coaches in my life. This person by far was the first person that I would look at as in a mentorship role in my adult life. And I'm really grateful that he was able to come in here with us today. And I know that many of you know of him. Many of you have worked with both of us. So in the huddle today, please help me welcome Todd Mackay.
Hi, Coach. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah. No, again, it's, I was thinking, and again, I'm so grateful for you, just having this idea of us coming together. I know it's something we've talked about wanting to do. And I thought, what a perfect time with the summer now in, that now we can actually sort of create that space and have this long overdue conversation here.
Yeah, and maybe we should segue this with the fact that this is our second conversation online in the last month. And, I was grateful that you were able to come on to into my rec leadership class, my grade 12 rec leadership class for Banting Secondary School, and share some of your journey with my students. And the fact that this segment's called The Huddle, Justin, is I don't think that there's any doubt that it's perfectly poetic and how you use that. I mean, one, as an athlete, and the fact that we work huddles a lot, but in the huddle, obviously a lot goes down, a lot is talked about, even in short terminology, a lot is described in a quick amount of time, but it's also a place where your teammates and your pals and your fellow soldiers and warriors, if you will, get ready to go to battle. And the fact that I was able to have you into my classroom, where we were able to rap a little bit about, things that make great leadership and the journey that you've taken and how unlinear it is, how that's important for my kids to hear in this day and age. So this is kind of nice that we get to do this twice in a month. So thanks for having me on. Yeah,
definitely. It almost makes me realize how, this used to be a daily occurrence, right? For 5 or 6 hours a day. So now it's twice in a month it's a special treat.
It is.
So I'd like to start off the huddle, keeping it light. Again, I know you've always been someone that I've been inspired by just by your energy, your enthusiasm. But what I would love to know, maybe for the people that don't know you as well, what is maybe an interesting fact, maybe a quirk that you have that a lot of people don't know about, but you would feel comfortable sharing with our audience?
Well, some might say I have a lot of quirks, but I'm not sure I could reflect on what they are. I'm sure you might be able to tell that better than I can, Justin.
Yeah.
I was just a kid that was born in Germany. A lot of people don't know that about me. So, when I wear my Germany sweatshirt or my jersey around over the last little while during the Euros, people always ask me why. And it's actually a nice little icebreaker. And people I've known for a long time don't know that. So, I was born in Germany to a military dad. And I think that was very formative in, getting to where I am today in some respects. And, I kind of joke that I identify as German more than the Scottish and English that is where I am actually, culturally from. I don't know. I probably have a lot of quirks. I'm very type B and very type A at the same time. You can do that. And certain things wind me up and certain things I don't let bother me either. So I'd have to default to you on that one.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it for for those people. We have this, Todd, I used to joke about the book of Todd that I was going to unleash during his retirement, where all the fun ideas and things that he said over the years. So maybe that would be a conversation for another day.
On retirement.
So I'm curious. So you've had a very decorated, a very successful career, first as an athlete and then as a coach, both at the university level and now at the high school level. Um, Again, prior to that, you had a very successful career as a two-time All-Canadian at Western and had an opportunity, right, with Toronto Argonauts. So I'm just curious, you've been able to play the game on both sides, right? As a player, as a coach. I'm curious, what role has sport played for you in your life? And what has maybe been the biggest lesson that you've taken away from it?
You know what? That's a great question. I think if I look back to my high school days, I lived up in the Barrie, the Collingwood area, went to Barrie North and Collingwood Collegiate, my high school years, and I have had some great coaches while I was there. But my parents were separated at a young age, and so I lived with my mom for a long time, or I lived with my dad for the later years of my adolescence. And I think I grew in a lot of ways with living with the two different parents over a different period of time. My mother, very maternal, took great care of me, did a great job as a single mom, and my father, who again was sergeant major in the airborne, had a very different way of parenting, and so I was able to kind of experience both aspects. But getting into sports for me, I was always very active. I was a little on the ADHD side, and I was always moving. So there was always a need for me to move. I was always running. I never walked anywhere. I ran everywhere. I biked everywhere. And for me to get into sports, it was just a way for me to sort of unleash that extra energy I had. And then the ability to get involved with great coaches along the way and help me sort of channel that energy, help me organize and structure that energy was for me very important, because in school I was very bright. I was gifted, but I didn't achieve what I did. I always underachieved on the report card in high school. And so having these great coaches with sort of their thumb on me kept me sort of on the straight and narrow as much as they could. Some of my teachers in high school, and I've gone back and laugh at the fact that I'm a teacher now, it's a little ironic in their eyes, but understanding that sometimes when you have those experiences in high school, it kind of makes you, it adds to your value as a teacher and being able to connect with kids who might be in the same situation. So Wayne Hunwicks was a high school coach that I had, in my senior year to football, who was great and, was very fatherly in how he coached and approached the team. And then, once I got to Western, obviously I was blessed with great coaches there, with Larry Haler as most football coaches are, an autocrat and very organized and very structured. And that's what made him so successful in his coaching career. And, I've been able to, and I've chosen to model a lot of what I do off of him, but then also with Bob LaRose and the defensive side of the ball, was a completely different type of coach. And so I sort of appreciated that paternal aspect of being a relationship type of coach. And the two were sort of a yin and yang on the team that I just fed off for 5 years as this long-haired kid from Collingwood that came down to play football as a walk-on at Western. And I was a kid in a candy shop, right? I mean, just to have that access to great athletes, great coaches, great facilities. I knew I was in the right place. And originally I was going to be going to York. I was recruited by York, and in 1989, when I went to the Vanier Cup in Toronto at the Skydome, when the first years it was open, and watched Western in the environment of a sold-out house with Saskatchewan and Western playing for the national championship, I said, I got to go here. This is where I need to go. And I was a little late on the boat to get my marks up, and so I was a late addition to Western, and they accepted me in July. So it was a late sort of decision to go there. And again, I was going in purely as a walk-on, which I feel like we couldn't even do that in this day and age. So when I got there, I remember taking my first hit in training camp was from Tim Tyndall, who went on to play for the Buffalo Bills. As I said, I think I'm in the wrong place. I'm not sure if this is for me. My hair was still flowing to the shoulders, and he had a nice tight military cut. And he was a bowling ball. So yeah, when I got there, I just soaked it all in. I soaked in the culture. I soaked in the history and the tradition of the school. I couldn't have been in a better place. And Clark Samways, who was our defensive back coach at Western, he was very fatherly as well, and he had a different approach. So between those three different coaches I had access to in university, I just, I never looked back, and I was able to get to where I got to and where I am today because of the formative learning I did at Western in my 5 years.
It's really interesting, Todd, because as you share it, because we sort of can't come from the same lineage, what I really got from you was you've sort of been able to take different things from different coaches, right? And what's interesting is the more I chat with people, last week I spoke with Andy Rady, right? A couple weeks ago, Stevenson Bone and Coach Faulds and Coach Burt. And it's interesting that you start to see how much the coaching tree, especially in Southwestern Ontario and how it's spreading out, it's sort of that one through, it goes, a lot of it either goes through Western or it goes through Queens, right? So it's interesting how deep those coaching roots are, and how so many of the lessons that are taught from some of the best coaches in the province, whether they be in university, high school, community, are some of the same principles. That I've just really noticed.
And one thing that sticks out to me about Western as well, and I think this plays a lot into the success Western has had over the years, and I think it has helped to sort of shape me, to do what I do today, was at Western, when you went to Western, that coaching staff was a family. They had played together. The coaches had coached the coaches coming up, and I just think that would created a different style of investment. And I think the players could see that. I think the players could feel that, and I think the players knew that there was a responsibility that when you play for Western, you're not just playing for your alumni, you're not just playing for your students, you're playing for your coaches who established the program, over the years, from coaches that they had been coached by, who established the program for years. And, some might say that's a little, bit of nepotism by having just coaches from Western coach Western, but, Western is a culture in itself. Western football is a culture, and who better to pass on the culture than those who were ingrained in it and lived in it. And so there was a lot to that. I know the coaching environment and landscape now is different than that. You are trying to find great coaches that bring different things from different areas and different programs. And I'm not sure anything is lost by doing that. I just think it's a different environment, perhaps, than what we were blessed to have grown up in and played in. So that always struck me as being, what made Western special was that sense of family in the team and in the coaching staff.
And it's great that you talk about family because, coaching with you for as long as we did, I mean, we coached together at multiple schools for 15 plus years. And when I really reflect back on those experiences, what has made you such a great coach, such a great mentor, is you are so big on family. Like some of the messages you preach, right? You talk about, it's about paying homage, right? It's about membership has its privileges. And really it's about sort of paying homage to those that have paved the way. And one of the greatest compliments, and I remember having this conversation with our good friend, Coach Jordan Haler, and we were talking once at a London Junior Mustangs practice. And he said to me, you know what Todd does a great job of is he's so consistent in his message, right? Like it doesn't matter whether it's the first practice, doesn't matter if it's an off-season workout, doesn't matter if it's the last game of the season, the last practice of the last game of the season. Your ability to sort of repeat that consistent message, as we framed this conversation, the ABCs of greatness, is one of the things that you do such an amazing job of. So I'm curious, one of the things is you talk about the ABCs. What was sort of the inspiration behind creating the ABCs in terms of your coaching philosophy for your football program?
Well, in fairness, you were a part of the process for that, right? And again, I was fortunate enough when I played that we were able to be very successful. We won championships, and when I played for a year in Europe, we won. And I constantly try to think back about what made those teams successful. What were the things that made that team successful? And when you're getting into coaching, like there's a lot coming at you. When you start to learn how to coach, there's a lot coming at you. You make a lot of mistakes. You might do some things right. Everyone's got a goal, and everyone's goal is to win, right? Everyone's goal is to get to the championship, but it has to be about more than that, right? And I know in my experiences growing up in high school and university, it was about more than just winning. Winning was sort of the outcome. Winning was a bit of an expectation, but it was an outcome of doing things well along the way. And Coach Taylor often preached that, right? Doing things well and doing them right. And if you can put in full effort, if you can put in attention to detail along the way, you're going to get to where you want to go. So it can't all be about the win. And so when we went to a coaching clinic, I think it was at Notre Dame actually, right? And I was trying to find a way to collect all my thoughts and to collect all of my goals about what we wanted to do for our program, having taken over from John Allen. And it struck me just with American coaching, particularly the acronyms, right? Great coaches have these acronyms, and kids have the attention span, as you know, of a gnat. And you can tell them all of these things you want every day, and after 5 minutes, it's going to be, the voice on Peanuts. So if you can keep it short and keep it concise, and having learned a little bit by watching these coaches in the States and the successful coaches, it kind of dawned on me, if we could narrow it down to 3 things. I call them pillars now, right? And when I teach my leadership class, I have them try and create their own pillars for their aspects of their life as a way of just organizing their thoughts and organizing their goals and organizing the things they want to do to get there. And we came up with them. And again, you were a part of it, that I want things to be structured. I want kids to have something that they can fall back on when times are tough, because times are going to be tough. And one of the hardest things to emulate is those challenges. Even, in the most, intensive practice, it's difficult to emulate those challenges. So when you get down to it, when someone, in the football terms, punches you in the mouth on the field, or you get down to the last part of the game and, if a lot is on the line, either you're ahead or you're down, how do you work through those times with resilience? And if you have these little, pillars of expectations that you can fall back on from the start of the season to the end, you hope that those things will help guide you along the way. So we came up with the ABCs, and the A stands for accountability, the B stands for belief, and the C stands for character, right? And accountability, the idea that you need to hold yourself accountable in season and out of season, in the weight room and on the field. And you need to be able to hold your teammates accountable, and they hold you accountable for the expectations on the team. That could be rules, or it could be cultural things that are just expected in your program. I don't like the word rules. I think rules kind of make it sound like, someone's rebellious, they're not necessarily going to buy in. If they don't like the sounds of it, they may want to break them. So we came up with the idea that our rules were going to be about things we want them to do well, not things we don't want them to do. And so the C of ABC was character. And so we decided that character was going to be sort of our guiding message and our guiding expectations for the things that we wanted to do right in our program. Getting in there on time, never walking on the field, having your helmet on, and under no circumstances swearing. Because none of those things are things that are going to establish and develop good habits on the field or off the field for that matter. And so if you break the character, you're going to be held accountable. And the accountability could be a piece where, maybe it's like, you're going to do a lap, or you're going to do some push-ups, or, by the time you get to grade 11, I think you can have those types of expectations. I wouldn't use them at a younger age necessarily. But if you were going to swear in the field, you're just simply going to do push-ups. And you kind of make it a game where you hold yourself accountable and, oh, shoot, I said something wrong. I got to go down and do push-ups. Or your teammate's like, hey, you don't swear in the field, remember, 10 push-ups. And, we've been blessed. We were blessed along the way and still am to have great kids with high character that do hold each other accountable and themselves accountable. And, if they do something that's not expected or that's wrong, if you will, and our expectations on the team, then they hold themselves accountable. It's not coaches screaming at them to do it. It's them knowing that, I did the crime, I got to do the time now. And, or their teammates saying, hey, that's leadership. That's mentorship within a team. And peer leadership is some of the strongest leadership we can have. So, the accountability with the A's and the character with the C's, and in the middle is the B, the belief. And even in tough times when the chips are down and you're not doing well, you have to believe in what you're doing, what your role is in your position, You have to believe what the coaches are telling you and trust that the coaches are telling you the right thing. You have to believe that everyone's going to do their job because, as you know, in Canadian football, there's 12 players on the field. So that's 12 links of a chain. And if one link breaks, one person doesn't do their job, it affects the whole team. But you have to believe that the guy next to you is going to do his job. And, if you do that, then you can believe in yourself. You can believe in your team. And you are going to create positive, energy that, late in the game, late in the season, we got this. We know what we're doing. We know how to do it. We've repped it out, consistently and every day. And, we preach into them the idea too, that if you're going to make a mistake, you make it full speed, right? And, everyone, the idea that it's not just, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it to a high quality and hold yourself accountable if it's not. And you continue to do it until you get it right. And if you can believe, then, that's where you can establish some success at certain parts of the game. Now, it doesn't work every time, but the kids know that those are our three pillars, the ABCs. And with that comes expectations, and with that comes, some level of accountability. And I think accountability in teenagers and adults as well is really important, because things get pretty loosey-goosey if you don't have some form of accountability. We've had situations when we coach together, Justin, where we've been in positions where we probably shouldn't have had any business being. And I think the simple fact that we preach that consistent message every day, that we held the kids accountable, and that they believe to the very end, helped them. And, when I read Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, that was a great read one summer. And the year I came back with that one, it was about, again, it doesn't matter if there's teams bigger than you. It doesn't matter if there's teams that are more, athletic than you. If you can go harder than them and be scrappier than them and grind harder than them, you can wear them down. And if they stop believing and you keep believing, we got this. And we've seen examples of that in games where that has come true. So, yeah, I think those pillars are important. I think kids need those things to be able to easily reference and come back to sort of center themselves and keep themselves focused on the field. And, we haven't won the big one. We haven't won an A championship, but, I always tell my kids that it's not all about the win. I often say I would rather lose with winners than win with losers. And I think the values and the qualities and the character you learn playing on the field, doing the right thing is better than, winning it with kids that, aren't necessarily the right fit for you.
And I appreciate you sharing. And really what came up for me, and I love how you talked about the power of consistency, because today I posted this clip of a conversation that I had with a former athlete that we've worked with, McCallum, right? Who won a Grey Cup with Winnipeg in 2019, and talked about this idea that consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates champions. And I feel like that's what you do a great job of, is that those core, like you call them, these core pillars, you do such a great job of doing them that, I think really what I'm most proud of, I know that, we've talked often about, is that when the young athletes leave your program, what kind of people are they in the community, right? And I love this idea that some of the best student athletes we've worked with are some of the best people. Like when kids leave the program and they have these clear and specific core values, that we actually set them up to be great in all areas of your life.
Because really, isn't it? Being in a football season, winning a championship is very now. It's very short term, right? But we want these kids to grow up to be great fathers, great husbands, great employees, great people within their community. And that lasts forever. That's timeless. That lasts until the day you die. And, again, if you can instill those values along the way, the kid's going to be successful on the field in some capacity, whether they win or don't win. But they're going to remember each other for the rest of their lives. They're going to be brothers in arms for the rest of their lives. You never forget those that you played with. And, yeah, I want them to be good husbands and good fathers. That's what's important.
So I'm curious, is there a memory, like a moment in your coaching where you started to realize, where you really recognize the power of those ABCs? Was there, again, probably lots of things jump to mind, lots of opportunities, but is there one sort of defining one that is the first to jump out of mind that goes, we got something here with the ABCs?
Yeah, well, 2014 for sure, and we talked about this before. We just kept pumping the message: you got to believe. You just got to believe. After every game, even after loss, you just got to believe. You got to believe. And I'm sure the kids got sick of hearing me say it and hearing us say it. But we started. I think it was 0-4 that season. And, we ended up coming back and winning the rest of our games in the regular season. So the kids started to believe as we rolled. I mean, kids could have packed up and gone home. Kids could have packed up and given up mentally, emotionally, physically after starting 0-4. And when we got to the playoffs, we played a team from Mother Teresa who had a number of athletes that went on to play in down south, I believe. And we had no business really being able to win. But we had a game plan, and one thing I like to say that, is that we're going to plan people, we're going to prep people, and that's always a goal, because sometimes there's a little smoke and mirrors that's involved, and we were able to beat the team, and the linemen were massive. They outweighed us, they outsized us by a fairly significant amount, and then we went on and basically rolled to the B championship that year, but it was worth it. It was good.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of good memories, right? When you go, I was out for a run over the last couple of days, just thinking about our conversation, and was thinking about, how many great memories, and how, the wins are great, and that's what we strive for. But it's really about, those moments like in the locker room where you're working towards a goal, or on the field, right? It's all these moments that you really remember.
Yeah, and other things that stand out too are when kids take over, when kids drive the culture, when the athletes are the ones that basically take the job out of the coach's hands. And I know some games where we've taken a few penalties that have been, somewhat unsportsmanlike, or we haven't necessarily respected the opponents, or we had goals for the game, we didn't achieve them. And the kids get off the bus and then they go line up on the field themselves. Like, we're running. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're running, coach. We're going to run some wind sprints here at the end of the game. And when kids take it in their own hands and the whole team buys in to those types of ideas, that's when they got it. That's when now the team is in great hands, because they have full buy-in, and they are disappointed in themselves for letting something slip, and they're going to hold themselves accountable. And doing the wind sprints doesn't mean anything. Doing the wind sprints is just a little bit of extra work at the end of a tough game. But the fact that they would use that, on their own to let's say modify this poor performance, that's impressive. When a coach has to be the good cop and step in and say, "Hey guys, I think that's enough. I think you can actually do now." That's when you realize those are aha moments, right? Those are epiphanies where they got it. Good for them. And we haven't won a ton of championships, but the thing that I'm proud of is the years that my boys have won the referees award. For being kids, athletes of high character on the field in the game that is typically high intensity, that is typically rough, that is typically violent, and sometimes tempers can flare. And so for them to be able to win that award, as a sign of respect from the referees who appreciate the effort that they put in during the season to do things right, that's a feather in their cap, where they should be as proud of that, as with the championship. Now everyone wants to hoist a big trophy for sure, but that's pretty darn nice when referees recognize the behavior of, the effort of, the character of the kids on the field.
Well, and I think that speaks volumes, Todd. One of your great sayings is attitude, right, reflects leadership, right? And that is something that speaks volumes about your attitude, right? And the standard you hold yourself to. And two memories that came up to mind as you were sharing was just your ability to really put people first. I think of a couple instances. I was mentioning this to Alicia. I still remember coming to the house the day before I had made the decision that I'm moving on. And I remember that was probably the toughest conversation I've had to have. I've ever had to have. And again, lot of build up there. And I remember you just showing such a level of compassion, still to this day. Like I was out for a run thinking about it, and it did bring me to tears because I was just thinking, I learned so much that day that here was someone that you've worked with for 15 years and you're going for something different, which is going to put more on their plate. And you're like, I get it. Like I know you have to do it. And the second memory I had was my first game at Lucas. We end up fumbling this on the last play of the game on the half-yard line. And I remember you guys were the game after us, you're down watching. And I remember thinking and seeing it. And I saw that ball. It was like a slow motion where I saw the ball. I'm like, we just fumbled it. And I remember feeling at the time upon reflection, being so embarrassed. And you know what? I've learned from it. I was making about me. I was not making about other people. And again, great lesson learned there. But two, I learned so much there because what reframed what it was really about was you were the first person to come up. Not any of the other coaches, not any, you were the first person that came up to me after the game. And you were the first to say, keep going, forget it, move on. And I just remember those two as being such pivotal reminders of what it's about. And you know what? From that lesson, Todd, from that fumble, I feel like I needed to go through that to remind me about being able to really learn how to be the effective leader. So I really want to thank you for that and reminding me what coaching and mentorship is about.
Yeah, everything's a lesson, right? And failures are lessons, and fumbles are big lessons for the kids and for you. And I think you take a lot away. I mean, very few teams have been undefeated and gone on to win a championship because it doesn't teach you about resiliency. It doesn't teach you about picking yourself up and wiping yourself off and keeping going. You have to have those moments of failure, but you also don't need someone saying, I told you so, or you don't need someone criticizing how that would happen, right? There's lots of armchair quarterbacks out there. You need people in your corner to be positive and to tell you it's okay. The same way kids need people in their corner to say it's okay, right? But yeah, that you quickly got back on track and kept it rolling. So, you guys learned from that, and it was a good moment, I'm sure, in the end.
Yeah, it was interesting. Speaking and I don't know whether it was probably something I've learned from being around great coaches like you and Coach Haler and Coach Carnival and coaching with you guys for so many years. But I remember just that's on me. We did not work that snap under that pressure enough to where the athletes felt comfortable to make that play. So I remember I think it was unconscious where I just said, it's on me. Guys, you know what? The first one's on me, second one's on you. And then I remember from that day, it was like you said, attention to detail. I am never going to leave anything unturned. Everything we're going to do, we're going to go into games feeling like our athletes are going to go in feeling confident that they can deal with anything.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and it was a tough day for me to watch you go. That's for sure, because you never want to lose the person you coached with for so long. But those kids benefited from having you there, and that program benefited from having you there. They've always been a successful program, but definitely the expectations, the character you brought over there, it was a great thing for that program. And I'm sure it'll be sorely missed when we get back to action. I have another coach that's leaving this year as well, so that's going to be difficult to fill boots there. But that's what coaching's about. You can talk about the coaching tree, like to grow, you got to make changes sometimes, right? And it's an opportunity to mentor these people, but it's also an opportunity for those people to grow and to go into bigger roles and to go into bigger expectations. And for those that enjoy the game, they need to do that.
Now, I'm curious. That is something that that's something an effective leader does, right? Like the effective leader finds out what people want, and then they show them how to get there in an accelerated time frame. So, since we've known each other the last few years, there has been some turnover, right, on your coaching staff. Is that something you've always done? Or is that something you've had to consciously do? Is that something you've always sort of been unconsciously really wanting to celebrate, when people move on and really saying, I get it. You got to go, yes, keep going. Is that something that has been natural to you, or is that something you've had to learn?
No, I don't like doing it at all. I never want to lose good people. You just support them, and because that's their goal and that's what they want to do. In high school, football, and anyone that out there that coaches high school football knows it. You want to hang on to as many resources as you can, because there aren't necessarily always a lot of coaching resources out there. And football is a game that requires a lot of coaches for different positions and aspects of the game. And there aren't a lot of teachers that are necessarily at every school to coach the game, right? So, it's difficult to find someone who works in the community, works regular hours, to come to a practice at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's kind of a surreal schedule. But, when you have guys on the team that give up some time from work or change their schedule, those guys are invested, and that they're going to do great things for your team. And the kids are going to appreciate it once you kind of define it and quantify what it means that they're there. And they appreciate that, right? So I've been blessed to have amazing coaches working with me over the years, and many of them are former athletes that come back, which I think is the ultimate testament, really. And the nice thing about that is they know the culture. They know what the expectations are. They know what the ABCs are, right? And so they're able to preach that idea that we want to continue with our culture. And that accounts for a lot of time of development and a lot of time of preparation. And when someone can walk in and do that, we have people on our coaching staff that are, played university, and do a great job and come back and help out. We have people that never went that far, but it doesn't matter because they're so good with the athletes. They buy into and they preach the culture. The kids love them because they're passionate about what they do. And that, the technical aspects aside, that is as important or more important in many respects than having played at the pros or the university level. Kids want to play for people they know care about them, and kids want to play for people that want the same things as them, in terms of success, in terms of wins, in terms of having fun, right? And my personal pillars have kind of changed over the years. And one thing I preach to my son, who kind of grew up in the hockey and the soccer world, he's just in grade 9 now, and he missed his grade 9 year of football, is you're going to work hard, have fun, and be a good teammate. And really, in life and all sports, isn't that what it's got to be about? Working hard, full effort. You're going to be there, go full speed, go all in, have fun, because bottom line, you have to have fun playing the game. If you don't, then why are you there? And simply be a good teammate. And being a good teammate really is the C's and the character of my ABCs. About being positive, about taking care of each other. And as an adolescent male, he doesn't always listen to his old man. He doesn't always follow and understand those concepts. He's a very emotional kid, but it sort of helped me understand that those are the 3 important things in youth sports, because you're only going to play for so long. No one's going on to play pro, and except for maybe 1 or 2 kids along the way. Few people are going to go on and play university. So really, it's about the experiences now. Maybe they're going to play for 4 years or 5 years of high school for football, anyways. That's it, right? So it's got to be fun, and fun can be hard. Fun can be intense. Fun can be, very expectations. But if they're working towards, common goals with their teammates, following those ABCs, then it's fun for them, right? So I've been trying to put things in different perspectives, and it's funny. I learned a lot by my son and sort of being a part of his sports career growing up that I've tried to institute now in my own coaching. And I think more of that now is empathy. And I probably feel like I'm speaking out both sides of my mouth, because I'm really hard on my son. I'm highly expectatious of my son. I am certainly not enabling of my son, and almost to a fault. And the poor guy is, probably hates having me around. But those are important goals, and those are important characters and qualities you want them to take away. And eventually, hopefully, he's going to get it. But empathy is one thing that you brought to all the teams we coached on, Justin. It's something that you brought as an individual. Sometimes I was a little bit more task orientated, but you were very relationship orientated. So I learned that from you. And definitely when you left, I had to work on improving those relationship aspects of my coaching. And, you and I both developed a lot over the years, and we used to be yellers. We used to be screamers. We used to be super intense. And some kids feed on that. Some kids are okay with that. But I would argue a majority are not in high school. And so you sort of change and transition in how you coach, and understanding that now, like I probably very rarely yell or get very intense, because if we're well prepared, we really don't need to be, right? Yelling is very often a very reactive response to things on the field, but usually those are things on the field that you haven't prepared well enough yourself as a coach. You haven't prepared your team properly, and you're being reactive because you're frustrated, but really the frustration should be in yourself, right? So that empathy card is one thing that I've tried to improve on. And if you can be empathetic and you can have that relationship building aspect as a coach, which again, I'm not perfect at, but I'm still trying to work on it, the kids have more fun.
It's great that you're bringing on this idea of really investing into relationships. And it's interesting that this week I was listening to a podcast and Urban Meyer was talking with Tim Kite, Tim Kite and Urban Meyer, that's where he learned from Tim Kite, and that's where he got above the line. And I feel like a pivotal part in our coaching experience was when we went to that clinic in 2011 at Notre Dame, because a big motivation for us to go beyond, going to Notre Dame was to hear Urban Meyer talk. And he was at Florida at the time. And what Urban Meyer talked about, and again, this is, he works in that very high performance, alpha environment. He said, the day and age of screaming and yelling at young people, at the people you're trying to lead your team, those days are gone, right? Like if you take a look at young people, you even know better. You're in the trenches. They don't respond to that anymore. They're not just going to do it, right? They're not just going to jump because you say how high. Well, maybe a small majority of kids will. They will not do anything until they trust you. And really the only way to build trust is by actually taking time to get to know them, right? To finding out about what makes them tick, about what their goals are, what they want out of it. And I find that those are the best coaches. And it's amazing to hear that you are, right, in the second half of your coaching career, but you're still finding opportunities to grow and to better yourself and finding out ways to adapt and innovate. So that's awesome, brother.
They're constantly changing. It's funny because I teach a direct leadership course, and one of the activities we do at the start of every semester is I ask the kids, like, what in your view, like, think of someone that has coached you or a leader that you've had. It doesn't have to be a coach or leader. We come up with a list of 5 positive leadership traits and 3 negative leadership traits. And, each kid comes up with their own, and then we put them all together as a class. And consistently over the last, I've been doing that probably now 4 years, consistently, the top characteristics of a good coach is positivity, motivating, knowledgeable, and communication skills are in there, obviously. But positive and motivating are the 2 that come back every single time. So if you're a coach that's yelling, you're basically ignoring a massive portion, a massive percentage of athletes and kids in your life, whether it be as a teacher, whether it be as a coach, it could even be a manager or a boss in some sort of job. They've had it all. And they're, I don't want to say clients, but they're the kids that are learning, sitting in class learning. They're the kids that are on the field, playing the game. So those coaches that have sort of changed the aspect of how they coach, and what be it NCAA, certainly in the pros now, those coaches that can have a positive impact in a positive way are coaches that are very successful. And the negative ones, have consistently been, the characteristics have been negative as a coach, reactive, poor communicator. And that includes like communicating information or the way they speak to the athletes or to their team. Those are the consistent top 3 of negative experiences with leaders. So, I've learned a lot from that as well, because, there's sort of aha moments when you reflect back on how you started coaching, right? We came from the university field, and now we're going to coach high school kids. They're not going to react the same way.
Yeah.
As we would have in university to our coaches, and Bob LaRose was never a yeller. So why the heck would I be yelling when he was able to run a defense for many, many years at the university level and was very successful at it? He was a very compassionate and empathetic coach, right? So, it's almost a compensation for your lack of preparation, a compensation for your lack of own self-control. And, when you kind of figure that out, and you can be positive, kids will have more fun, and they'll roll for themselves and they'll roll for you, as opposed to spite you. And sometimes that does work, right? But so again, I haven't perfected it yet, but we're still developing it.
Yeah, and you bring up the great point, right? That it's a constant process of learning. You're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but you do your best to do it a little bit better than you did yesterday. And what really came up as you were sharing was this idea: is what is the thing that people lack the most, right? And I don't say that is at times as human beings we lack self-esteem, like belief in ourselves. So we gravitate to people that are positive, that are motivating, that are inspiring because we want to be around them, right? We're almost like, sort of just drawn to them, right? So that law of vibration. And because when you're around people that are so calm and confident and that can drown out all the noise, it's like you just want to run through a wall for them because you want to be like that. You want to be around them. So I love that you're getting to that point.
Yeah, I read Pete Carroll's book last year. Within his coaching experience, his coaching book, and that was a good one too. I mean, and that really reflected those things that I had already been thinking and feeling. And that sort of drove it home for me. So if this guy at the university level in NCAA was very successful, and granted, he had great players and great programs, and also translated that at the NFL level. I mean, NFL players don't need autocrats as coaches. That doesn't work at that level. Sure, Saban can be an autocrat because he holds a lot over the kids' heads. He holds scholarships and the road to the NFL. But at the pro level, you're almost more of a Democrat or a laissez-faire type of leader, and those skills are already established. They know how to play the game. So now you're just trying to provide a fun and positive experience and environment for them to play in. And that's obviously working relatively well for him. And there's other coaches in all leagues and all sports, that are very much the same way. Great players don't always make great coaches. Great players don't always make great leaders because they may have been good at it. They don't know how to express it, right? You can know all the X's and O's of how to play the game, but if you can't teach it, it doesn't matter, right? So that human element is as or more important than that X and O element, and regardless of what level you play at, right? So.
Management, right? Like what is management? It's the development of people at the end of the day, right? It's about developing people to help them get, to become better, right? So they can get to where they want to go.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm curious, last question I have for you, Todd, is depending on when people are watching this, we are coming out of a very interesting time in human history. Just a very unique time. And although, again, the horizon is there, people are seeing it, maybe people are coming out of this. Maybe they're just, they're really at maybe a low point with their health, their relationships, their finances, right? Their career. Maybe they're just, they just feel like life has presented a lot of obstacles and challenges. What is one piece of advice that you could offer that could just help them to get back on their feet, to create some positive momentum and just get the ball rolling so they can get back on their journey to greatness?
In terms of athletes or coaches or
anything that comes to mind, brother.
Do what you enjoy. Do what you enjoy. If it's coaching, you keep coaching. If it's playing, you keep playing. I mean, throughout this, obviously I'm a teacher and I've been teaching online quite a bit this year. When we went back in the fall, I was teaching fitness. It was in person. And I was really shocked at how out of shape a lot of these kids were, and kids that were great athletes at our school. But we as adults and we as a society said, stay home. You've got to stay home, right? And part of the message was, well, you can keep moving, you can keep exercising on your own. But what adolescent, what teenager knows how to go out and train on their own? Has the wherewithal to get up, get out of bed, go for jogs. Sure, some do, but the majority don't, right? So these kids were really, really out of shape, and it was really worrisome. Socially, all right, they were behind physically, they were behind certainly mentally. They were really frustrated, they were tired, they're confused. We've been asking them to do this. And the mental health issues was a huge issue this year in school. Some kids don't learn well online. And it's really demotivating if they're not doing well online. Their home life could be chaos. It could be a train wreck. There's distractions in the background as we're asking them to learn online. And those were tough for them. But, when I was teaching phys ed full remote, I was sort of asking the kids, get outside, go outside, and they had to track their exercise and activity. you know, 3 to 5 days a week, and they've got to be moving, jogging, running, walking, biking, rollerblading, skateboarding. I don't care. Just go, you know, for half an hour, hour at a time. You know, and that's a good way to slowly work the way back into physical health, mental well-being, you know, social health and well-being by following the rules, obviously. And I was really surprised at how many kids came back and were really bought into this concept. But the one thing they said is like, that was fun. So, okay, thank you for asking us to do that. So they needed a little fire under their butt to do it. They needed some structure of the same people that are used to yelling at them every day to do this, do this, do this, do it right, you know. But they were just grateful to get out. They had someone holding them accountable, if you will, to do it. But they enjoyed doing it. They got out and started playing basketball. They got out and started biking, right? They saw their friends remotely or safely from a distance. But if you can have fun doing these things, then that's what's going to matter. So I have my football players, they're out there training. They're training on their own. They love the game. They want to get together. They miss seeing each other. So they're getting together a couple times a week and they are training. They're running. They're doing drills. They're, you know, doing a little bit of a throw around, and they're enjoying what they are doing. And I think when we come out of this, if you can get back to the things that you enjoyed doing beforehand, and you still enjoy them, you've just simply got to continue doing them. And hopefully it's outside and not in front of a video game or a screen these days, but do the things you enjoy. And, you know, I had a number of guest speakers on this year, you being one of them on my class. I had Jim Weiss from Western and Lori Castleman from eHealth, and some great guest speakers and Steve Snyder from Queens. Like, I was so blessed to have such great people on, and many of those messages were the same. Is, you know, if you do the things you enjoy, it may not take you in a straight line to where you're going. It may meander, you know, your life a little bit, but it's worth it, because if you enjoy it, you make sacrifices to do it. It's not always easy. It might be hard. So that could be activity. It could be sacrifices you're making in your life. You know, you may take some financial hit along the way, but it doesn't matter because you enjoy doing it. And one of the things that we talked about on the day you were on is sort of that gamble you took to give up your safe, right, an important career to do what you love to do. And it obviously is working well for you because it's clear that you're loving what you're doing. So the sacrifice means very little when you get up every day and you look forward to it. If you're working a job that feels like a job to you for the rest of your life, you know, that's not fun. But if you can do a job that never feels like work, that is you love doing every day, you know, you're going to go a long way in what you're doing. And you know, when I went into teaching, I didn't know if I would love it. The beginning is a grind, but every day is interesting. Every day is fun. It's a comedy show every day at school, watching teenagers try and develop. And I'm blessed to be able to coach a game of football, right? So, you know, so I'm staying put because I love where I am, but it's okay for teenagers and adults, for that matter, to meander in your path to where you want to go, because you do it because you love it and you believe in it. So, you know, what my offensive coordinator that I've had for a number of years, that was an alumni of Banting, and has coordinated the offense since you left. Travis Dizan, he's going on. He's moving on to a bigger and a better thing with Queen's University, and I wish him all the best of luck. But here's a good example where it's a big sacrifice. He's leaving, you know, a good job at home where there's comfort, and going on to do something that he wants to do because he loves it and he wants to get better. Like, that's amazing, right? So I'm gonna miss him, but same as I missed you. But for him, that's the best life move he could make, and I'm excited for him. Oh, to be that age again and be able to do those things, right?
Yeah.
The world is his oyster. So I would say that just do what you love and do what you have fun with. Life's too short.
I agree. It was interesting. There's a sort of an image popped up. I thought back to her when we first started coaching at Central, and kind of being at that age, and just, you know, it was as much as it was football and X and O's and wins, it was really about that social, right? And that's what made it fun, right? That's what, like, we not only taught together, we coached together, we hung out after games together and went out on the, you know, so it's just, great reminder.
When the kids see that, the kids feel that, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of establishes the culture of teamwork in them, you know, not just because we're telling them to, but because they see it in practice, right? They see it being done by adults in front of them. And that's infectious, right? That's infectious.
Well, first and foremost, Todd, I really just wanted to thank you for coming on here. And part of my main intention for adding a second conversation of the huddle was to highlight great high school coaches, community coaches, people that are just doing things, as you said, the right way. And I not only just as an outsider looking in, but again, I've been able to be mentored and follow your lead for 15 plus years. So I really just wanted to acknowledge you for that. And lastly, most importantly, I think it's important that beyond the football stuff, I really want to celebrate you for the man you are, for the husband you are, to your amazing wife, for the dad you are, just for the amazing teacher, coach, mentor that you are, not only for me, but for so many thousands, I would say by this point of your career, thousands of young people. So thank you for choosing to show up as the man you are, brother. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate that. And a lot coming from you, so thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So folks, again, take something that Coach here shared with us today. Again, so many valuable wisdom, not only tips that will help you succeed as an athlete, as a coach, but more importantly, in the game of life. And as Coach so beautifully said, really use the lessons that you learn on the field can translate to success off the field. And at the end of the day, that is what sport is about. It's about building, right, a better life and reaching your next level of greatness. I want to thank you all for tuning in with me, The Huddle. Join me next time for my next guest and have an amazing rest of your day. Have a great day, everyone.